Sechus Nazir Daf Mem discusses the halacha of the haircut and the isser to take a haircut of a Nazir, that he is forbidden to take a haircut for the time of Nazirus and he is obligated to take a haircut afterwards. The Gemara is going to focus on the halacha that the haircut is only defined as a haircut if it's with a razor and it's all the way down to the skin. And the Gemara is going to discuss the source of the halacha that is with a razor. The Gemara is going to compare it to the shaving of a Mitzaira and the shaving of the Levim that was done in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. So let's begin. The Gemara starts with a quote from Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda says 3 halachos, 1, 2, and 3. In order for a Nazir to get malchus, all he needs to do is remove 1 hair. If he leaves 2 hairs left from his mandatory haircut at the end of his Nazirus, that is not considered to be a complete haircut. And the third halacha, which is how much of a haircut messes up his Nazirus and he has to do it over again. So here he says 2 parts. It has to be the majority of the head was shaved and has to be shaved with a razor. So Rav Chizda is therefore saying that the only way that a haircut ruins the Nazirus and the Nazirus has to start over is if it's done with a razor. So the Gemara says that's not true. We just learned on the last daf, drasha from the pasuk where it says Loisa Aviru. We had 2 different sources actually. It says Tarli Yavr al Roishoy and Kodesh Lashem. That teaches me that it could be anything else, not just with a razor. It could be removed by pulling out the hair or by using a type of solution that dissolves the hair. Either of these things violates the isser of not taking a haircut during the Nazirus as well, and that also has to do it over again. So why is it here say only with a razor? Someone says no, it didn't mean with a razor, it meant like removal with a razor, that is all the way down to the skin. Now the Gemara quotes a brisa that brings this halacha of Rav Chizda, and it says that a Nazir who pulls out or uses a liquid, uses a chemical to remove his hair, does not ruin his Nazirus. Only way that it's ruined is if it's a majority of the hairs on the head and it's done with a razor. That's the Tanna Kamma's opinion. Shimon ben Yehuda says, and Rabbi Shimon, all it takes is 2 hairs. Just like 2 hairs being left at the end of the haircut. The haircut at the end of Nazirus is not a complete Nazirus, and is not a complete Nazirus haircut, and he's not Yaitzit. If he cuts off even 2 hairs, that ruins his Nazirus, and he has to start over again. So that's a machlekes, how many hairs have to be left on the head. All right, now we bring another Mishnah, and this Mishnah is going to take us to the sugya of what is the source of the halacha of the razor. So the Gemara quotes the Mishnah. It says there are 3 people that need to shave, and that their shaving is a mitzvah: a Nazir at the end of his Nazirus, a Mitzaira during the purification of his Tzaras, taking off the Tumah, and the Levim in the times of the Mishkan, where they had their entire body shaved and they were waved around as part of the Chanukas HaLevim. So the Mishnah continues and says that it has to be just with a razor. If it was not with a razor, using something else, or if it left 2 hairs, and here we see the halacha of 2 hairs, then none of these 3 are yaitza. And now the Gemara wants to know the source. So the Gemara says 3. First of all, let's analyze this mission. It said that 3 people need to do a haircut, and their haircut is a mitzvah. So obviously, it says it's straight out in the Torah. What are you teaching me here? So the Gemara says the chiddush is that it has to be done with a razor. You may think that it could be done with something else. It could be done with a chemical or with pulling the hair out. The chiddush here is the word tiglachas. It has to be shaved. The hair has to be cut off. There's no other way to be to that halacha. Now, it has to be with a razor. If it's not shaved with a razor, you're not yoitza. So the Gemara says, what is the source for this? Now, by a Nazir, we know it says Tar Li'avar Roishai, and we had earlier that says it shouldn't be on his head while he's a Nazir, but afterwards it should be on his head. Now, Levim, it says Ve'haviru Tara Kol B'sarim. Again, it mentions a razor explicitly. However, in a Mitzaira, it doesn't mention a razor. So how do you know that a razor is what has to be used to shave the hair of a Nazir? So the Gemara says, okay, let's go through it. Maybe we can learn out of Levim. Levim have to be shaved. Mitzaira has to be shaved, just like Levim is with a razor. Mitzaira is also with a razor. The Gemara says, no, you can't learn from that, because Levim are a much different halacha. They have to be waved around. Maybe the only reason they have to be shaved with a razor dafka is because they have to go through the waving. But a Mitzaira doesn't need to be waved, doesn't need the razor. Someone says, okay, learn it from Nazir. Nazir also has to be shaved, and him it says explicitly a razor. The Gemara says, no, again, you can't learn from Nazir to Matzera, because a Nazir has a special halacha. His carbon requires breads. A Matzera's carbon doesn't require any bread, so maybe therefore he doesn't need to be shaved with a razor specifically. So the Gemara says, okay, we'll learn it from the two. You can't tell me that the reason that what triggers the halacha of a razor is the waving of the Levium, because you see a Nazir has that halacha and he's not waved. You can't tell me that it's the bread of the carbon of a Nazir, because you see a Levi doesn't have that and he's not waved. So what is the Tzad Shava? What triggers the halacha of using a razor? It must be the mitzvah of the haircut. And therefore we could also include a Mitzvah who also has a mitzvah of taking a haircut. Says the Gemara, this is also not a Galiman. Rava Mibar Nish asked Rava, what do you mean? There's something special about Nazir and Levi. They don't have a mitzvah. Nazir and Levi don't have any variations in their carbonis. There is no cheaper carbon for someone who's poor. A mitzvah who's poor brings a cheaper carbon. So therefore he has a more lenient halacha, and therefore possibly he doesn't need to have the razor. And the Gemara leaves it at that. The Gemara doesn't seem to have a source. So I think this is an interesting thing. On the last daf, we wanted to learn the halacha that a Nazir needs a razor from that which a Mitzvah needs a razor. We want to do the opposite. We assume that it's pashut that a Mitzvah needs a razor. We want to learn a Nazir from there. And we said you can't, because the Kal V'chomer goes the other way. A Mitzvah is more chomer than a Nazir, so you can't learn a chumrah from Mitzvah to Nazir. So the Gemara now asks, I don't understand. There we wanted to learn Nazir from Mitzvah. Now we want to learn Mitzvah from Nazir. How does that work? If one is clear, I should learn the other one from that. Which is the clear one? Which is the one that I need to know? You can't try to learn Mitzvah from Nazir and Nazir from Mitzvah. Not only that, we couldn't even figure out how to learn Mitzvah from Nazir. We wanted to learn Nazir from Mitzvah. Now we want to learn Mitzvah from Nazir, and we can't even manage to do that. So what's going on over here? So the Gemara says that this question was asked by Rava to Rav Misharshia. By Rava Bar Misharshia to Rava. So Gemara says he asked that it's two different Tanaim. We're dealing with two different Tanaim here. We have two different approaches. What's that? So that's based on a machlokes in a different Mishnah, where Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim argue as to what is the halacha of the shaving of a Mitzvah, and do we have a different source for it. So the Gemara brings this Mishnah. It's a bit complex, and we'll go into it at length. The Mishnah is talking not about the haircut of a Mitzvah, but about the Isser to cut off the payos of the head. And the Mishnah brings the machlokes of Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim as to what tool is that Isser. And that machlokes will teach us about Mitzvah. So the Mishnah, it says that according to the Chachamim, there's no Isser unless it's cut off with a razor. And Rabbi Eliezer says even if you use another tool, it mentions a malaket and a rehitni, two other tools that could be used for hair removal. He says that also violates the Isser of pas rosh cholesakifu, not cutting off the payos of the head. So now we have a brisa. And brisa says, what is the source of the Rabbanon's halacha that the Isser is only with a razor? You only chayav with a razor. So it's as follows. In discussing the haircut of a Mitzvah, the Torah says that he has to shave all his hair, and then it says he has to shave his beard. Why does it mention the beard separately? He has to shave all his hair. So the reason is, the Gemara says, the Brisa says, the Chachamim will explain to you, to teach you that even though it would be usher to shave a beard, there's an isser to shave a beard, and you may think that that overrides the mitzvah for a mitzvah to shave his beard. Now, about shaving a beard, it says twice. It says Kohanim should not shave their beard, and all Yisraelim, it says, should not shave the beard. So you may think that a Kohen mitzvah, or even Yisrael mitzvah, should not shave his beard. That's why it specifies Ziknai to teach me that even though you would generally be violating the Isser of shaving a beard, a Mitzvah needs to do it anyway. Now, that is the proof that the shaving of the Mitzvah has to be done with a razor. Because if it didn't have to be done with a razor, what's the problem? Let him do it with something else. And he doesn't violate the Isser of shaving the beard. The Isser of shaving the beard is only if he shaves with a razor. Yet the Torah still has to tell me that you are allowed to do it by a Mitzvah. Why are you allowed to do it by a Mitzvah? Why do you have to tell me that you have to do it by a Mitzvah? Let him shave with something else. Let him shave with a malaket or a rehitni, and he won't violate the Isser of shaving the beard. So before we go further, the Gemara goes to prove that shaving of the beard is only usher if it's done with a razor. So the Gemara says, let's learn from where it says, Upas zekanam lo yigalechu, and it says v'leisashchis. So v'leisashchis means destroyed all the way down to the root, and l'sigalechu means to exclude other tools. So if it's removed with the root, means that there's no issue with scissors because it doesn't go to the root, and the lashon giluach excludes other types of hair removal that don't involve a tool because they don't count as giluach at all. So there you see the only isser is a tool which goes to the root, and the only thing that is a razor. So that's how we know that the isser of shaving the beard is only with a razor. And again, because we have to point out that a mitzvah is allowed to do it, the only way that a mitzvah could do his haircut is with a razor. Asks the Gemara, how does this prove that you have to use a razor to take the haircut of a mitzvah? Maybe all it proves to me is that you're allowed to use the razor to take a haircut of a mitzvah. You're allowed to use the razor, and you're allowed to use the razor even to shave the beard, which would be a violation of shaving the beard. And the Torah is for telling me, no, you're allowed to use the razor, but it doesn't mean that I have to use a razor. Maybe I could use something else. The Torah is just teaching me that I could also use a razor, but something else could be used as well. Says the Gemara, no, that can't be. Because I could figure that out on my own. If you're allowed to do it with another tool, I could figure it out on my own that you're allowed to do it with a razor also, and it doesn't violate the issur of shaving the beard. How could I see that? Because a Nazir who's allowed to use any other tool is allowed to shave his beard as part of his haircut with a razor. Certainly a mitzvah. Why? Because a Nazir, his Naziris is not something he's not supposed to do, like we've seen in the past. It's a shtickle avera if somebody is makabel Naziris and deprives himself. So if, despite the fact that he's doing something he's not supposed to do, we still say that he's allowed to shave with something else, he's also allowed to use a razor, even though it violates the issur of shaving the beard, certainly mitzvah, where he's doing the mitzvah of purifying himself from the mitzvah, the Torah tells him to do this. If he's allowed to do it with something else, he's certainly allowed to use a razor as well.